If you don't choose something for yourself, someone else will. You're putting someone else in the driver's seat of your life. I was afraid of the backlash, and I was afraid of disappointing other people. Through the stage and then embodying what I brought to the stage in my own real life, it really, really helped me to find my voice.
Welcome to the Yes to You podcast, where we empower women to manifest their vision of happiness and success with down-to-earth practical guidance for conscious living, personal growth, and entrepreneurship. Our goal is to see you take inspired action by saying yes to your calling. I'm your host and the founder of RohiniWellness.com, Dominique D. Wilson. And now, let's get into the topic of the hour. Welcome to episode 15 of the Yes to You podcast. In this episode, we are going to be exploring the topic of how to find your authentic voice, and I am so excited because I have an amazing guest that I can't wait for you to meet. But first, I want to give you a quick overview of what you can expect from today's episode. So if you're tired of feeling like someone else has been in the driver's seat of your life and ready to really take charge and start creating life on your terms, know that this is the episode for you. In a nutshell, you're going to be learning some strategies that you can implement right away to break free of chronic shyness and people-pleasing behavior. You'll learn how to find your authentic voice so that you can start speaking up, being more assertive, and having the confidence that you know you need to push you forward so that you can achieve your goals. With that said, if you're on the go, be sure to come back whenever you get a chance to yes2upodcast.com and click on episode 15 so that you can access the show notes for this episode, because there will be links there to additional resources that you can use to further empower yourself. And all of the resources mentioned in this episode, of course, will be in the show notes. Now, I know you're excited to be empowered by all of the amazing content that you're going to receive from today's episode, so I won't delay any further. Let's jump right into the interview. So I'm very excited about our guest today. As the founder of The Art of Expression, she is a communication and acting coach who helps women who are way too nice communicate with confidence, set healthy boundaries, stand up for themselves, and find their authentic voice. She holds a master's in public relations and corporate communications and provides training to both individuals and organizations on how to communicate effectively, whether that's in the context of personal relationships, on stage, or in the corporate office. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Vicky S. Joseph. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you. I must say I was very excited to find out that you are a Florida native, because I myself lived in Miami for 12 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we were pretty much neighbors.
Yes. Cool.
So to start off, I have to ask you, what is the best thing about living in Fort Lauderdale?
The weather. Like when people are complaining about winter cold and everything like that, it's like, we have sun, you know?
Absolutely. I loved being able to go to the beach, and I didn't do it as much as I wanted to when I was in Miami, but that's the one thing I miss. And if you could change anything about Florida, what would that be?
The same thing, the weather. It's unpredictable. So it'll be sunny, it'll be raining, but for the most part, I enjoy the warm climate.
Absolutely. I'd have to say it would be the mosquitoes.
Oh,
that was like the one thing where I was like, So I know that you're a communication and acting coach. For those of the listeners who don't really know what that entails, can you talk a little bit about the work that you do?
Yes. Well, in regards to being an acting coach, what I do is I help the actors to be able to delve into the uncomfortable emotions that as humans, we're afraid to feel oftentimes, and to be able to convey those emotions on stage. And in regards to the communication consultant aspect, is I help, the women that they may not want to admit, but they are in the realm of being people pleasers, or they deal with codependency, being enmeshed in other people's lives. And I help them to have those difficult conversations that they may not want to have.
That's very, very powerful. I think that everyone can relate to that. So what got you started in this line of work?
Well, I would say it's a little bit of trial and error and following my heart. people have seen different gifts in me, and they would say, oh, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? And I'm like, sure. So that's how I got into acting. It was pretty much by accident. A friend said, let's go help the theater guild. And I auditioned and I got in, and I just loved acting ever since. It wasn't like a aha or a booming voice. It was just things that I was interested in, groups and organizations I would join, and things that the gifts that people saw in me in regards to public speaking, or I had a fun personality. They would say, hey, can you host this event for me? Okay, sure. Can you speak about this topic? Sure. And that's pretty much how it came about. But to hone in on the specifics of communications and the specifics of being taken advantage of and finding your voice, that was from lived experiences. And so that way I honed in on a niche because of the life experiences that I've had.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about some of those life experiences? I figured that with the communication, because I can tell that you are very passionate about really helping people to build that confidence and find their voice. So what have been some of your experiences that really lit that fire in you to help other people in that way?
Well, I never had a voice pretty much growing up. And because of wanting to please people and wanting to be liked and everything like that, it was literally like a kick me sign that I wore on my back, an invisible one, where it was like, oh, I can take advantage of her. She seems nice. You know what I mean? So I dealt with bullying, teasing, things of that nature growing up. And even in adulthood, there are adult bullies. It's not necessarily like, oh, just a childhood thing. There are people that use their aggression to get what they want. And the target is usually like the nice girl or the person that's accommodating. Those are the people that are usual targets for people that have aggressive personalities.
I can definitely relate to that. Growing up, I also dealt with a lot of bullying and stuff like that. And I've always been more of an introvert. So I was kind of that quiet person and very nice and wanting to not really rock the boat. And so you're absolutely right. It is like walking around with that kick me sign. And so learning how to navigate that and have those difficult conversations is so important. I think it's something that's really undervalued and under nurtured because no one teaches us how to communicate.
That is true.
So what would you say to yourself if you could have a conversation with yourself at maybe 7, 8, or 9 years old? What would you say to yourself now?
I would say to myself, you got this, girl, because that fear of, oh my gosh, that fear of rejection, they're not going to like me and everything like that. I would definitely tell my younger self that the respect that you have for yourself is more important than how other people see you or what they think of you.
Absolutely. I think that's a very powerful message. So I want to talk a little bit more about personal growth. I noticed there's some buzzwords on your website, and I'll list a couple off. I see the word self-expression, confidence, self-discovery, internal freedom, authenticity, catalyst for change. Can you talk a little bit about your journey of artistic expression, how you got started in that, and how it's evolved over time?
Okay, well, it started pretty much on stage. I felt like I'm an introvert as well, so I relate in that regard, but people see the extrovert gifts. And they you're no, I'm an introvert. And so I was able to shine on stage and be who I couldn't be in real life on stage. And eventually it started to, morph into become myself fully. And I was allowed the freedom to be myself. And it was through acting that I was able to do that. And making sure that everyone liked me and they were pleased with me. Oftentimes I wore like a mask because I didn't want to rock any, boats. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers or anything like that. And so I had to learn how to express myself off the stage and have those conversations with people and be honest with myself and be honest with other people with the boundaries that I was setting. And it was a very difficult experience for me because I was afraid of the backlash. And I was afraid of disappointing other people. So through the stage and then embodying what I brought to the stage in my own real life, it really, really helped me to find my voice.
Absolutely. I think that's so important what you said about how on stage you were able to, through your stage personality, access these extroverted qualities, but off stage it was a little bit different. And I've also had a similar experience. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So would you say that artistic expression is something that is necessary? Because I've noticed even in the schools today, they're taking the arts programs and the music programs and things like that out because the emphasis is on education and there's so much focus on that. But I think it's really important to shed light on the value in artistic expression. Can you speak to why that's so important for everyone, especially as women?
I think it's very, very important. Like, I wouldn't be like who I am today if it wasn't for, it started off writing. Right? I wasn't able to talk yet. I wasn't able to, get to that voice yet. But it started off with creative writing, storytelling. Then it became my own real, through poetry, my own real emotions through journal form and everything like that. And so all forms of art, may it be painting or drawing or dance, everything is a form of expressing yourself. And for that to be taken away, it's a form of robbery. You know what I mean? Like, everyone isn't going to go into like a corporate type of pathway. You know what I mean? The arts make life a little bit more interesting, a little bit more brighter. And I think it should be, if it is being taken out of schools, I think more or less parents can still do the due diligence to get their children in programs, even if it's outside of school, so that they could be able to express themselves.
Absolutely. That's so important. So at what point did you say, you know what, I want to start actually working with clients? Because that's a big step from, working on yourself to now being able to go and face off with people and help them with that. So how did that come about when you started working with people as a communications consultant?
Well, it's similar to what I was saying earlier, people requesting this from me, in the sense of like, can you help me develop my voice? Or if I was helping them with the acting coaching, they were like, oh, I see you can possibly do this. And so honestly, my clients helped me develop a lot of my programs because they kind of navigated me through, okay, I want you to teach me to do this. I want you to specifically coach me on this. And so I tailored what I did based on that individual. And so that's pretty much how I kind of carved out the niche of being a communication consultant, because I was setting the boundaries. I was telling people, these are the things you're supposed to do. And they're like, okay, you teach me that? Okay, well, sure. And that's pretty much how that came along.
I love that. Just taking action and hearing people say that to you and really just being able to put that into action. That's so powerful. So what would you say has been the highlight of your journey as an entrepreneur?
The highlight of the journey, I would say, is my own transformation, because I live what I coach. And so I'm constantly having to sharpen my own skill set and having difficult conversations on a daily basis. And so with that, it's like every single time I have a new difficult conversation, I'm like, who's that girl? Look at you. Like, it's exciting because my nickname back in the day was Quiet Vicky. Right? Someone who was always sitting in the back of the classroom, afraid of people, afraid of my own shadow, pretty much, pretty invisible, not have a voice, to be able to stand up for myself, set healthy boundaries, have difficult conversations. It's amazing to me to see the transformation that I went through first, so that I can help other women. When I see women get on stage and they share their stories, like their real life experiences through my acting coaching, and they were the shy person, they were afraid to share, and they blossom on stage, that is also a highlight for me.
That's beautiful. That must be very fulfilling, to be able to help people create that same transformation. And as you said, it never gets old. You're always like, wow, because as you continue, you're always going to grow and find out new things about yourself. And so I want to unpack that just a little bit. So what are some of the specific skills? For instance, if someone if someone is in the shoes that you kind of left behind in that same quiet place, how can they start cultivating their self to find their voice so that they can be more assertive and be able to have those conversations? What are some simple things that they can do to get started?
Okay, some simple things that they can do, I would say baby steps. Even from ordering a coffee or, asking for condiments at a restaurant. Ask for it. If they got your order wrong, excuse me, ma'am, this is not what I ordered. Sir, may I have, some additional things here? Like those little steps, you're using your voice. Because oftentimes, what is it that we may do? I don't want to bother them. I don't want to, what, it's good enough. And that's not what you ordered. You know what I mean? You're paying for something that you didn't order. So even in those small things, being specific about what you want, that's the first step. And then the other thing I would share is valuing your preferences. If you don't have an opinion about something, have one. If you don't have a stance about something, have one. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so oftentimes we're on the fence because we don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to get anyone mad. But when you value your preferences, even if it's like, okay, Pepsi or Coke, choose one, water or juice, Italian food or Mexican, Mexican or whatever it is. Have an option, choose something, because if you don't choose something for yourself, someone else will. You're putting someone else in the driver's seat of your life. So take a stand on something.
That's very, very powerful. So ask for what you want and value your preferences. Have some kind of opinion somewhere you stand. Why do you think that's so difficult for so many people? And I'll say in particular, I've noticed that women tend to have more of an issue with the indecisiveness. Why do you think that's such an issue for us?
Oftentimes, I can only speak from a woman's perspective, but being a woman and, on the other side, taking off the rose-colored glasses, before you can even speak, people are telling you how to look, how to dress, how to be, how to walk. This is what a woman is supposed to do. And so literally we're cultivated to be people pleasers. Make sure everyone else is okay before yourself. Right now, self-care is a buzzword, right? But we're not taught how to take care of ourselves. We're taught to take care of everyone else. And so we have to literally unlearn all of the things that society places on us, culture places on us, and even our own expectations of ourselves based on the interpretation of society and culture. So specifically for women, we have to be sugar and spice and everything nice. Your femininity is tied up in you batting your eyelashes and being agreeable and being nice. And so if I'm anything other than nice, then I'm angry, then I'm bitter, and no one wants those labels on them. And so those labels, the fear of having those labels mutes our voice. And so we have to constantly push and fight to have that voice. So that's why it's difficult.
Absolutely. And I think those two tips that you shared are a great way, because it's the small things. And if you can start with those small steps, it kind of transfers over, I think, over time. And you start to do that in the bigger situations and the more difficult conversations.
Definitely. That's how I started, the small things.
I saw like a little part of your Art of Expression workshop that you taught. And something you said really stuck out to me. You said you must be 100% to give 100%. And so other than those things around self-expression, what are some other ways that you found to focus on self-care that you would recommend to other women, especially women in business? Because being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of moving pieces. And at the beginning, you're doing everything on your own. So what would you say to the person who's in that space about how to take care of themselves?
Well, for me, I was disillusioned about self-care. I thought it was the bubble baths and the manicures and pedicures and treating yourself to movies. And I was disillusioned. Reframing that, I had to learn to master the mundane, setting time in my schedule to plan my week. setting time to, okay, at this point, I'm going to speak to my clients, setting time to do that. And then it takes a village, surrounding myself around, having coaches. Coaches need coaches, having mentorship, that's important. It takes a village, even in entrepreneurship. And I think that once you set that foundation for yourself, when we talked about the small things, see what small things can you outsource. If it's getting a virtual assistant to, do some of the little tasks that, you don't have to do right now, you've built that foundation, outsourcing can save you a lot of time as well. So those are some of the things I would suggest.
That was so awesome. You gave a lot of value there. You said you start off talking about reframing self-care, because you're right. When we talk about self-care, all these images pop in our head about the bubble bath and it's these small kind of aesthetic things. Right. And though that's nice, to even get to that point, it takes, like you said, mastering the mundane, making sure that you set up your day so that you can manage your time well.
Exactly.
And, that's not always the easiest thing to do. Right. I think also the village is huge, because a lot of women feel alone in their journey. They might be the only one in their circle of friends or in their family who's interested in starting a business. Right. And so can you speak to that a little bit about the process of finding a mentor or finding a coach, especially if you're kind of introverted and you're not really sure how to start that process? How can someone in that place start cultivating that village for themselves?
Okay. Well, I would suggest, I know like right now, social media would be a place to start. I would suggest we all have little best friends in our head on social media. You know what I mean? Like there's people we follow that we admire. If it's a podcast like yourself, a podcast, you're sharing great content. You can be someone's mentor from afar. You know what I mean? And so the people that are sharing amazing content, podcasts, right? People that you're following online on social media, like these people can be mentors from afar. There's amazing people that wrote amazing books that we're not reading for whatever reason, but there's audio books as you're commuting to work, because a lot of us are busy. We don't have time to read the books, right? There's audio books. There's things that we can do on the minimal level at that point. But then I would suggest, go to, I think it's eventbrite.com. See what events are going on in your community. There's always a conference or a shindig or something going on. Go to those events, invest in yourself, and meet those women face to face and have those conversations. Get a coach, invest in yourself. A lot of the mentorships that people will get, it might not be free. You know what I mean? That's a financial investment that some people may have to make. And some people are doing it virtual. You might be in a different state and still be able to connect with that woman. So the suggestion would be social media first, get the books, listen to the podcast, do those things, and then physically leave your home and go to events, meet some women, or, invest in coaching.
Absolutely. And I appreciate all of those tips you shared. I think you hit the nail on the head. So speaking of books, are there any particular books that you really like that you think we should add to our reading list?
Okay. 2 books. There's one called Boundaries by Henry Cloud. And so that was like a big aha for me, because the book starts off with an illustration of a woman pretty much who their life is unmanageable. And I was like, that's me. This woman trying to manage it, over responsible, and then the book actually pinpoints how to set the boundaries. They give you a vignette of what your life looks like and what your life would look like on the other side of boundaries. And so that was a powerful book for me. And the other book was No More Christian Nice Girl. That was a big book for me because I had this ideology of what Christian women are supposed to be like and act like and this and this and that. And it really gave many different dimensions on, specifically Jesus, how he wasn't a pushover. Right? He said what he meant. He came for a mission. Like, it was very specific. He wasn't a people pleaser. And so that really gave me a different viewpoint of, I don't have to be one either. So that was cool for me.
Excellent. So Boundaries by Henry Cloud and No More Christian Nice Girl. Who was the author of that one?
I don't recall, but
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those. So now, can you talk about what has been the biggest challenge in your entrepreneurship journey?
My biggest challenge, I guess in the beginning, it was setting a price to my gifting. That was what was difficult in the beginning because of the innate people pleasing default mindset that I had. But through building my voice and setting the standards and doing my own life work, it has become easier to set the prices and accept rejection. Because with the prices, with the new standard, with those things, there will be people that say, you know what, that's not what I can do right now. And I can accept it and say, okay, the right people will come. And so I think when you have some innate issues within yourself, it will hinder business. And we
Absolutely.
have to do our life work in order for us to get over those humps, to charge what we're worth and not be afraid of rejection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what was helpful for you in shifting out of that mindset so that you could set prices that really reflect the value that you deliver?
I invested in a coach. And yeah, I had to invest too. I live what I teach. And so in investing in different coaches for different seasons of my life, one of my coaches, Kay Richardson, she said to me, do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? And you guys, it slapped me in my face because I was like, I want to be liked. That was an honest answer. And it was just like, but I want to be respected more.
That's a powerful question.
Yeah. And so I had to, make that difficult choice and move forward with that and say, I want to be respected and more than I want to be liked. And through that, there has been, people that it's all fun and games when you're free. When you start setting prices, people get a little, nervous and, you're brand new and whatever they're saying. But you have to be able to set those standards. And it's funny because the same people that are kind of lifting their noses are the same people that have respect because they know that they cannot step to you any kind of way. They have to be able to come to you the same way that they would go to other business owners.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that you mention that because, being respected is a part of your integrity,
Yes.
Absolutely. So when things get tough, what keeps you motivated? Because we all have days where everything just hits the fan, right? So what are some of your sources of inspiration that just keep you powering forward?
I would say one of which is I think I have an amazing group of friends. And it's so crazy because I didn't realize how important friendship was. I've always had friends, you know what I mean? And so when I hear about women who can't get along with other women and, beefing and all, I was like, what? That exists? And so my core group of friends, I feel like I'm blessed to have them and I can call on them. They can call on me. And that's been literally strength for me. And I would say replenishing myself, like you mentioned the quote earlier, I have to be 100%. And so I have to have my own routine so that I can get through the day. So then that would include listening to inspirational messages, if it's a sermon, if it's just something inspirational, I'm constantly self-aware of things that I need to work on within myself. And I will get a book on it. I will read on it, and I would constantly make sure that my personal development game is strong. And so those are things that I do to continue to sharpen myself with my personal development and my professional development.
So friends, self-care, and personal development. I think it's so important what you said about friends. I just did an episode recently about sisterhood, and I didn't even realize this until I was recording the episode that growing up, my framework around friends was kind of similar. Like friendships are nice, but they're not really that big of a role in your life because it was about work and entrepreneurship. My parents had a business growing up, and so it was about going to work, going to school, and friendships were for later when you had time. And I realized that I was not doing a good job to put as much emphasis on cultivating friendships. I was more focused on work as an adult. And so I had to really do some work and shift out of that mindset and see the value in taking that downtime to build those relationships. Because like you said, you don't realize how important that is until you do cultivate those friendships, you know.
It's big, like getting a text message, how you doing, like the small things. It's very, very, very important. And that's one thing that I feel like I enjoy the sisterhood, like being a part of the group, like being a part of the sisterhood of entrepreneurship, the sisterhood of moving forward. Like I think we're all a part of it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's part of that village. You know, you have your mentors and your coaches, but your friends are a big part of your village as well. So I'm so glad that you said that. So do you have a quote or a mantra or a tagline or anything like that that you kind of live by and that motivates you?
Yes, this was, it's not my own, but it's something that I really, really value. It was the catalyst to push me into my journey. And it is, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And that's by Anais Nin. And I couldn't remain in that bud anymore. And it caused me so much pain, making sure everyone was okay at my own demise, at my own detriment, was no longer sufficient for me anymore. And I had to blossom. And in blossoming, it's gut-wrenching, it's painful, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful quote. If you had to share one piece of advice with someone who is in the place where they have some ideas about a business they want to start, but they've never really put themselves out there, they never told their story or anything like that. If you could give one piece of advice to a woman in that situation, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, stop overthinking. You already know what you need to do. You have all the information, you've done the research, and I would say stop overthinking it. Like for myself in particular, I didn't get a loud booming voice. I didn't get a dream. I didn't have this special moment. It was literally physically stepping into all of the things that I was interested in or someone wanted help with. And I found interest. I found passion in those things that was already within me. So I would say pretty much get out of the box, step outside of your comfort zone, try new things, try things that you're interested in. And you never know, you might stumble upon your passion.
Awesome. And as for the woman who has already gotten started and she's already got her business off the ground, what are some of the things that she can do to continue to grow and to blossom into that next level of herself?
I would say continue on your personal development journey, because some of the things that we don't work on in our personal lives can hinder our business. Right. And so if it's self-sabotage in other areas, it's going to come out in your business. If it's a critical thought pattern you have in other areas of your life, it'll come out in your business. So I would say don't plateau, keep working on what you're doing, but work on your personal development so that it doesn't infiltrate and go into your business.
I think that is very sound advice, and I so appreciate that. So I know we're getting around to the end of our time here. So can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you further and learn more about you?
Yes, you can visit me on VickySJoseph.com. You can also email me at info@VickySJoseph.com. And I'm on social media, Instagram @VickyAllDay, Twitter @VickyAllDay. Find me.
Thank you. So I want to just really quickly acknowledge you for one thing in particular that I really admire about you, and that is your spirit of just taking inspired action. Because like you said, people would come up and tell you things that they saw in you, and that happens to many people all the time, but they don't necessarily implement. And so just having that courage to be bold enough to just get out there and try it, I really wanted to acknowledge that. And the second thing I want to, you're welcome. The second thing I want to acknowledge you for is just this desire you have to help other people make a change. I really respect that. And I respect women like you who get out there and just keep going, because you're an inspiration to me and to all the listeners and all the people in your tribe as well.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And it was an honor that you had me on your show. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Another amazing interview with a phenomenal woman. I don't know about you, but I feel so blessed and empowered just to have had that conversation with Vicky, and so inspired by all of the wisdom and the information she shared. Of course, all of us are walking away with some actionable tips that can be put in motion right away. I know that there was a lot shared in today's episode, which is why I've included detailed show notes. So be sure to visit yes2upodcast.com so that you can check the show notes for episode 15. This is how you'll be able to find all of the links to the resources that were mentioned, and also links to connect with Vicky. I want to know what you thought of today's episode. Be sure to come over to social media, share your opinions, share this episode with your friends and your family, especially if you know that there's someone who might find this information beneficial. And of course, be sure to add the hashtag yes2upod so that I can find your comment on social media. If you have a question, a comment, or you'd like to submit an idea for a future show, email me at feedback@yes2upodcast.com. And finally, don't forget to tune in this Thursday for your weekly wellness tip. In the meantime, remember, you get to choose how you show up in life. Love yourself fiercely, own your story, and say yes to your calling. It was a pleasure to have you join us for this episode of the Yes to You podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to visit rohiniwellness.com/vision to download Dominique's free PDF starter guide, the Create Your Vision Workbook. If this episode was helpful for you, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast player. Also, when you share this episode on social media using hashtag yes2upod, we'll give you a shout out on a future episode. We look forward to inspiring you next time right here on the Yes to You podcast.